Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to tell you a story about my first day of college. It's Friday Fun Day, so I thought I'd tell this story, and it's really less about my first day of college and more about my mom. And a lot of people have commented that my mom seemed awesome. My mom was awesome. It's hard to describe, a lot of people probably think their mom is really good. I just like to tell stories where she's involved so you can see how cool and fun and just encouraging she was. So, to get this story right, I've got to give you some context. Some of it's come up here and there in other videos, but I will repeat myself. I was the last of 5 kids, so there were 5 children. Our house was always going. It was like hustle bustle. There was kids running around all the time. Since a lot of my brothers and sisters brought their friends over, there were other kids there all the time. It was just a busy house. It was the house the kids knew that they could hang out at, and they didn't have to be super careful, and my mom didn't hover, and we ended up kind of informally adopting a kid from up the street. And from my point of view, he was just always around and part of the family. But Tommy lived up the street, and his parents were older, and he was an only child. And he hung out a lot with my older siblings, and he was just always around. So from my point of view, it felt sometimes like I had 5 older brothers and sisters, not 4. Interestingly enough, my mom was not supposed to have me, because after she gave birth to kid 4, and yeah, we just called everybody, usually I referred to everyone by numbers, because like my mom was really bad with names and would often call kids by the wrong name, and once she called my sister by the dog's name. So instead of saying Dina, she said Lucy. But my mom developed severe rheumatoid arthritis right after kid 4 was born, and her doctor said, no more children, you have to stop, your body can't take it. But my mom thought the age gap between kid 3 and kid 4, it was 6 years, she thought that age gap was too big. Specifically, she thought that kid 4 wouldn't have anyone to play with. So I was literally brought into this world against doctor's orders to be a playmate. I was brought into this world to play games. So I believe my entire destiny was set in stone before I was ever born. Now, it's funny, as I got older, I used to tell people, well, my mom wanted an extra kid because she wanted to achieve perfection in a child. And once she did, she stopped. However, my brother Greg, who's kid 4, he tells the story differently. He says, well, you don't know you've reached the top of the mountain until you start down the other side. Which means kid 4 is the best kid. But I'm sure that was just a accidental point of that anecdote. Okay, so anyway, so that's the family. So let me talk about college. Since I was kid 5, I was the last kid out of the house. So for my brother, who was 2 years older, kid 4, he went off to Virginia Tech. I would eventually go to UVA, which were competitor schools, but they pretty much kicked our butt in football all the time. So the only thing we won for was, I believe, academically, because the year before I got to UVA, we sold all of the old computers to Virginia Tech. So I was learning on these brand new computers, and my brother was learning on the stuff UVA sold to Virginia Tech. But I was the last one out of the house. So the last 2 years in the house, I spent more time with my mom than I had in years. It was just us. She'd come home from work and go, what do you want for dinner? And I got to choose. Sometimes I got to choose what was on the television, which never happened when I was growing up. Sometimes we'd go out to eat, which you can't afford to do when there's 5 kids. But when it was just her and I, she'd like, let's go out and grab some Chinese food. My mom loved Chinese food. So when I got into UVA, I was 17. I turned 18 when I got there. My mom took me down to the school. It was a 2-hour drive. She helped me get packed. She helped me figure out what I'd need. We said goodbye to my childhood dog, Lucy. And my mom drove me the 2 hours down to UVA. We got there, found my room. She helped me set it up, find where the laundry room was, find where the cafeteria was. We then went out for lunch, and then she took me to the grocery store. And she said, let's just buy some stuff. I had a little mini fridge. She said, let's buy stuff for the fridge. Let's buy you some snacks. When we got back to the room, my roommate's mom saw us bring in a couple bags of groceries. And she said, why are you doing that? And I was rooming with someone I knew in high school. So the moms kind of knew each other. And his mom was like, why are you doing that? You don't need to get him food. They're on a meal plan. And she just laughed and she said, these kids, do you see how much they eat? Did you watch them play D&D? They eat a ton. I'm not sure that meal plan would tide them over. Besides, it's nice. I remember my roommate's mom was like, huh. And then she went out to the grocery store and got some snacks for my roommate. I mean, we were going to share, but it was interesting that she had to be reminded to do that. She had to be convinced to do that. Where for my mom, it was just, this is just what you do. Anyway, so after a few hours, it was getting in the afternoon. My mom still had a 2-hour drive to get home. So my mom left. And now throughout the day, I had seen parents dropping off their kids. And this is the first time in their kid's life and that they weren't going to be at home anymore. And these were parents who weren't going to see their kids anymore. And they were crying. And I'm like, I wonder how my mom's going to do. Because at that point, I had never seen my mom cry. I saw my mom cry later at my father's funeral, but I never saw her cry before then. Well, she left, and I went through the front lobby and stood out in the front of the building. I wanted to watch her drive away. She was smiling. My mom was driving away like this. I was like, hey. So I went back up to my room. I waited 2.5 hours, more than enough time for her to get home. And I called her. And I said, hey, Mom, I saw you smiling as you were driving away. All the other parents were crying, and you had a big smile plastered on your face. And she made a weak attempt to deny it. And then she said, you're right, I was smiling. But let me explain to you that for the first time in 30 years, because my oldest brother is 12 years older than me, she said, for the first time in 30 years, I came home to an empty, quiet house. A house which was just as clean as it was when I left. She said, I don't think you can understand what it's been like for the last 30 years. It has just been hustle, bustle, noise, dirt, everything. And she said, I was just happy to get home, sit down, put my feet up, and realize no one is here waiting for dinner. And we laughed. And then I said, Mom, I hear what you're saying, but I have one question for you. And she said, what? And I said, have you not fed the dog yet? And she started laughing. She goes, okay, I got to go. Anyway, I hope you liked that story. That's the story of my first day of college. It's a memory of my mom that I love. And it gives you some insight into her and her personality. I hope you like that.